Hello, welcome to another edition of the Row Roundtable show. Pleased to have you with us. Joining me this week, Big John Melkowski is doing his Mud Hens thing. So
yes, he is.
It's Von Graffine. He is the head basketball coach at Port Clinton and spent a year tagging along with me doing high school games.
I enjoyed the year out of coaching, to be quite honest with you, and enjoyed doing radio.
We had fun.
We did.
We had a lot of fun, actually.
Enjoyable.
Marty Bin, Hallmark Mortgage, all-around good guy, and Court Jester.
I prefer Court Jester, yes. I'm here for comic relief.
You don't like all-around good guy?
Well, it has elements of truth. Most of the people that know me, that's not the first thing that would be out of their mouth. That's all I'm going to say.
All right. First show we're taping after the NFL draft, so we get to take this and tear this apart. See, now you're shaking your head already. We got to start with Cleveland before we go anywhere else. We have to start with Cleveland.
I knew you were going there, and that's why I started shaking. I don't understand how you don't trade back, and if, for example, I've heard rumors recently that New England wanted to trade up and they wanted Mayfield in the worst way. Well, if they're willing to give you a lot and take Mayfield, give it to them, because there were an awful lot of choices available. So you better, if you're going to reach as far as they did with that pick, you better get it right.
The Browns claim they didn't get a good offer. I don't know whether that's true or not. I'm just telling you what they said. They claim they didn't get a good offer.
What was and what happened behind the scenes, and why did they tell you that they want things, they set people up? But they took the Heisman Trophy winner. Now, there have been some guys that have made it, Charles White and others like him, but they have a Heisman Trophy winner. And you know, we won't know right now how good or bad this draft is until 5 years from now.
Right. Well, quarterback's a 50-50 proposition, and so, I mean, you're always rolling the dice. So to me, the question is, what kind of capital did – because I'm not sure anyone knows.
Before we say rolling the dice and crapshoot or anything like this, it's not. All right? Because if it was, the Browns wouldn't stink every year.
Oh, you're saying eventually they'd get lucky.
Exactly.
Okay.
If you throw enough darts at the board, eventually you'd hit a bullseye. So you can get an edge. There's things you do in the draft and there's things you don't do in the draft. First of all, if you want to play the draft well, you draft value. The Browns, we can all agree, probably the Browns did not, by drafting a quarterback first, did not draft value.
When you're drafting a quarterback, so often as they are, and they've had some great picks, you know, and it hasn't gone right for them. Manziel's out. Deshaun is there and gone. Deshaun's a local guy, and want to see him do well. I mentioned in the last show, he's going to be in Green Bay for a year. At the end of that year, I'd love to have a conversation with him and talk to him about the organization in Cleveland and the organization in Green Bay, and just reflect on those two things.
Oh, I think we know what he would end up saying.
Yeah.
I was going to say, if you'd like to bet what that conversation would be like, I'm prepared to put in an envelope in a time capsule right now what that response would be like, and I'm prepared to wager a large sum, a sum that matters to both of us.
And I've heard now that Hard Knocks is going to be in Cleveland this year. They don't need any more drama in Cleveland. So we'll see how it plays out. But you're right, they keep getting it wrong. There was a time when the Lions and the Browns, when Millen was in Detroit, were like 7 years after the draft, not with the Lions or not with the Browns, the players they had drafted weren't even in the league anymore. How do you have such high draft picks?
Like the Lions drafted really big wide receivers that can't run and don't catch so well?
You know, and there have been busts through the years, but how do you miss it so often? Now, Dorsey is new to Cleveland, and we'll see what he does.
Now, if you have to take a quarterback, which I wouldn't have taken a quarterback first, but if you have to take a quarterback, I do think Mayfield's probably the safest guy. Although, I'll throw this stat at you. There's only been one other quarterback taken first overall that's been 6'1" or shorter, and that guy's Michael Vick.
So I have a simple theory on this, and I can't substantiate it, and Browns fans, I apologize if this makes you upset. I think it's because they saw Blake Bortles have a little success with the RPO last year in the playoffs. They've got Tyrod in front of them, and they're going to run a run-pass option offense that allows him to make decisions out on the edge where he can pull it and throw it or tuck it and run it or give it. And they're going to hybridize that for the team because the entire personnel they have is RPO-oriented. And if that's the case, I get it. I'm not sure you can win in the NFL all the way up, but and again, I apologize for saying this.
Well, I think Tyrod Taylor or Drew Stanton will probably end up starting the season.
Right, but what I'm saying is 8-8 to them would probably be considered a resounding success.
Oh my gosh.
Across the league. So I think what we're trying to do here is not play to the 5-year down the road. This was the best decision. I think we're playing to a draw that says if we can get to 4-12 or 6-10 or 8-8 over 3 or 4 years, it will be considered a resounding success. And the way to do that is to run a hybrid with Taylor now and Mayfield later that runs that RPO that creates a matchup problem with perhaps inferior personnel on the offensive side of the ball, and they're going to try and get away with that. And I'm not sure you can succeed with it long term, but I think that's the plan. And if it is, okay, I get it. You won't stink, but it's not for long-term success, and that's where my concern with that pick is.
How soon do you throw Mayfield in? Deshaun last year, he's our guy, and then a week later he's out. Then he's steady as a start, then he's back in. And do you wait for Mayfield? Aaron Rodgers sat behind Brett Favre, and other quarterbacks have sat. Garoppolo sat long enough in New England, he ended up finally leaving. But let him develop, and when you have to have a kid out of college impact your game right away, you're not going to see an 8-8 or a 4-12. Who's the last rookie starter that won a lot of games?
Their rookie
And
year?
where?
Almost no one their rookie
Exactly.
year. But there are plenty of quarterbacks who had horrible rookie years, even horrible sophomore years, who, as long as, so Carr's older brother, when he got annihilated and got beat to death, got gun shy.
Right.
But Aikman and Manning and even Goff from 2 years ago, there is a history that if you go in there and trial by fire, that you can come out of that and be a very successful quarterback. So I don't know that the Aaron Rodgers sit behind Favre for a while is necessarily the right bet. It's easier on the body of that young quarterback, but I'm not sure it's necessarily more successable if you compare them out, because there are guys who've been thrown in the fire and have been, and then by the second or third year they figured out because the reps pay. The hard thing is the way the practices are now and it's regulated, they don't get to rep it as many times. So if you're not getting first team reps, it's hard to develop.
There's so little hitting, and the timing is thrown off. There's so little hitting. Even the NBA can only have one contact practice in preseason every 48 hours. I've been to NBA practices where it's 3-man weave and skeleton offense because they can't have any contact. Well, how do you try out or get real-time reps? It's not easy to do.
Well, here's the thing with the Browns, and I think I put this on Twitter before the draft started, of what I would have done. And it would have played out, too, because I would have taken Barkley first, because I think he was one of the best 2 or 3 guys in the draft, and really the only running back that was up that high. I think he's a special guy. I said I would take Chubb at 4, Bradley Chubb at 4, and he was there. He was there to be had. The Browns passed on him, and Denver was more than happy to scoop him up and take him at number 5. And then the quarterback that I liked that didn't go high and even went later than I thought was going to go was
Rosen?
No, actually, Mason Rudolph for Oklahoma State.
Right.
I can't figure out how they look at guys anymore. How can you put Josh Allen in the top 10 and you put Mason Rudolph in the 3rd round? Mason Rudolph is what, 6'5", 240, Oklahoma State, threw for over 4,900 yards, only threw 9 picks. Matter of fact, I saw a chart, too. It was most yardage thrown downfield on the season.
Correct.
Number 1 was Rudolph. Number 2 was Mayfield. You know who number 3 was?
Logan Woodside.
Logan Woodside.
I saw the
So
same
you want
chart.
to talk about accuracy downfield? He went in the 3rd round to Pittsburgh. I think Pittsburgh stole him in the 3rd round.
I told you this 2 weeks ago and last week. I do not understand why New England didn't grab him up in one of their picks and then wait till the 7th round to draft a guy I've never heard of or whatever. I don't even know. Whatever round they picked.
I thought the Giants would take him with the 2nd pick of the 2nd round.
There are a whole bunch of people I just don't understand why they didn't take it, and that's fine because, hey, I hope he proves us right.
New York wanted Barkley, and Barkley wanted New York. He wants to brand himself. He wants to be, I read a heck of an article in Sports Illustrated, he wants to be all about one of the guys that when you see Nike, you see Barkley, and hand in hand.
The problem with taking a running back that early is that he is the highest paid, he's one of the 3 highest paid running backs in the NFL, and he's never played a snap. So he's paid ahead of Le'Veon Bell. So when you say value, the problem with any running back is the NFL does not value running backs right now. And I'm not saying I agree or disagree. It's just they overspend.
All right, we got to take a break.
Bring yourself to Ralphie's. Yeah, it's that good.
Ralphie's is chillin' and grillin', some tasty fire-cooked choices just for you. Try our zesty barbecue baby back ribs or our beer-steamed ballpark sausages finished on an open fire. As always, half-priced apps start at 9 p.m. every night and go great with our rotating craft and IPA selections.
Bring yourself to Ralphie's. Yeah, it's that good.
Ag Mortgage Marty here. With the new tax code changes, home equity lines of credit, HELOCs as we call them, have changed whether they're deductible. And with recent interest rate increases, you're seeing those variable rates on them increase. I've had a lot of interest in customers putting them in with their first mortgage, converting to a 10, 15, even 20-year to compress the timeline so they're not stretching back out over 30 and get better rates. If you have interest in that, just text HELOC to the number you see on the screen there, HELOC, and we'll get you info on how to take advantage of that tax deductibility all over again.
Since 1982, Red Wing Shoes at North Reynolds and Bancroft, selling purpose-built footwear for men and women no matter what your job is. Carrying the largest selection of Red Wing shoes in Northwest Ohio, over 3,000 pairs of boots, shoes, and accessories in stock to ensure the proper orthotic fit and style for your line of work. Stop in and see Mike, Aaron, or Bob at their newly renovated office. We're easy to get to at the corner of North Reynolds and Bancroft with ample parking. Red Wing Shoes, Reynolds and Bancroft, where service, quality, and fit come first.
See the best wrestlers in the Midwest. Powerbomb Wrestling is on the road and debuting in Findlay on Sunday, May the 6th at the All-American Rock House, 1851 Tiffin Avenue. It's a double main event as Pedo the Killer Clown faces the legendary Bobo Brazil Jr., plus a tag team war as Righteous Indignation takes on the former champions of the Dirty. VIP tickets and reserved tables are available. Get your Findlay discount advance tickets, the All-American Rock House, or Changing Tides Aquatics, or anytime at pbwexcitement.com. Okay, back we are on the Front Row Roundtable show presented by Ralphie's. And don't forget, if you're out and about at about this time, as you're watching this show, you can get half-price appetizers at Ralphie's anytime after 9 o'clock. There's also all kinds of drink and beer and wing specials throughout the happy hour during the weekdays, and all kinds of craft beer. And Marty's tried half of them.
At least.
All right.
So speaking of
back to the NFL draft.
Speaking of poor decisions, so you guys have got to help me with this because I still a week later I cannot understand this. So the Browns trade up with New England to get Antonio Callaway, the wide receiver from Florida, whose history is a rap sheet and 2/3.
Oh.
So Josh Gordon has a smoking buddy? I mean, someone please explain to me how this fits what you want with the problems you've had, especially in the wide receiver room. I mean, what are you going to do there? Have a hookah pipe before you go into the somebody help me understand. His defense for I didn't sexually assault the young lady was I was too stoned, I couldn't have done it. And then got picked up with paraphernalia 6 or 8 months later. And then had a diluted test for the combine. Please help me understand how that's what you want to trade up for. Help me.
Are you saying that adding money to that equation would not help the situation?
I'm just saying, talk about codependent enablers. I'm just trying to figure out how,
I don't understand.
Right, the little, I saw Animal House, the little devil on one shoulder and a little, hey, let's go smoke one. Don't you dare, you might fail a test. I mean, seriously, that's what we're doing? Help me. Please. Someone logically, I don't care how great the talent is. If you can only play 2 games every 2 years because you're suspended all the time.
I think I expressed how I felt about guys that were bad apples, quite frankly. I don't want them. We all, during the break, we were all talking about coaching. When I coached Little League and that, I didn't want them. I don't care if they were the best player on the team, I didn't want them.
You're not going to lose to them. Those guys, they're not going to win, be successful. Josh Gordon has proved that. Manziel proved that as well. And then you got Baker Mayfield, who's been compared to him, but only an instant or two.
But I think there's a huge difference between Mayfield's perceived transgressions and what Callaway has.
Oh, yeah,
I agree. To me, there's no comparison between the two. And I'm not a Mayfield apologist, but the things he did as a coach, what I've
As a
they,
player.
they don't. I'm sorry.
Oh,
I'm saying
you as
looking
a
at it
coach,
from a
yeah.
coaching standpoint, he's highly competitive. He's got an edge. He's a little bit of a.
Just got to dial it back a notch.
Some of that's maturity. Some of that's the situation.
But you can live with that. He's a competitor.
But I stole from the bookstore. I can't keep a pipe out of my mouth. I mean, there's a certain amount of I don't get it. And oh, by the way, you traded up to do that. And again, I have a hard time because it's an organization that when it comes to that reputation, there's not much wiggle room.
Let me expand on this because here's one thing that I've learned by talking to professional athletes, guys that are really good athletes, and you've had your experiences too, and you guys can weigh in on this. But guys that are very good players are almost to a person very smart guys most of the time. I mean, there's always exceptions, but the dumb jock thing is so wrong. It's a bad stereotype. It's not remotely true. Most professional athletes are very smart guys. That doesn't mean they don't do dumb things at times. I mean, Miguel Cabrera has done dumb things off the field. But Dan Dockage would always talk about him being bright-eyed. And there's something to that. And he was right when he said that.
And to your point, and this is a person with a very colorful past.
They don't make it.
What I was going to say is I can remember stories, and in fact, it came up the draft weekend, the stories of Lawrence Taylor falling asleep or being whatever at a meeting, and they'd wake up, and Parcells or whoever would ask him what the coverage was or whatever else, and he would go to the board.
It was
and
Belichick, actually.
Belichick, and would draw the whole thing, and they'd be like, okay, I guess he can sleep. Because when it comes to football, his football IQ is
exactly
off. I mean, so yeah, maybe he wasn't going to get a 34 on his ACT, but his football IQ was a 1600 on the SAT. And I'm sure you've coached basketball players like that when it comes to the decision in the moment or whatever, you say, why'd you do that? And he says, and you're like, you can't disagree with it, right? Because his basketball IQ is crazy.
You know, Drew Brees is 5'11", right? But I saw a piece on him one time, and he watches so much film, it's ridiculous. And he had a play where the defensive end on this side was coming up to the line of scrimmage, but he saw something in all the tape that he somehow knew that he was going to drop back into the coverage. And linemen rarely drop back into coverage. And he was so convinced of it, the tight end that he had on that side that was covering his back side, his blind side, he moved him in motion to the right. Snapped the ball, what happened? The defensive lineman dropped back into coverage. I mean, that's ridiculous knowledge.
The things that they read, that's why a rookie
That's
quarterback
why,
has
for
trouble.
him, 5'11" doesn't matter.
Right.
Correct.
He's so well prepared. He anticipates well. I was fortunate to be around Myron Bell that played 10 years in the NFL here. Not the speediest kid, but by gosh, he could anticipate and smart, like we were talking about, the IQ, the football knowledge, the anticipation, the ability to fit in with those other guys that were in Pittsburgh and succeed. But you're right about the high IQ guys. And like an LT, there's exceptions to a rule, but also just so much football that they can, you're talking to the average guy, and the other guys have already picked it up.
But he was brilliant on the field.
Yeah, brilliant on the field.
You know, the Kirk Gibson home run off of Dennis Eckersley in the World Series, 3-2 pitch. If you ever watch that again, he stepped out of the box before that 3-2 pitch because he stepped out of the box to remember what the scouting report was. And the scouting report said Dennis Eckersley would try to throw a 3-2 backdoor slider. Got back in the box, that's when he threw, leaned over the plate, and whacked it over the right field fence. I mean, it's ridiculous.
By knowing, once in a while you'll see kids that make steals in games, and they were scouting report steals because they followed the scouting report. They knew it was going to happen, and they made the play.
But the game is so fast, no matter what the game is, to be able to actually process that in the middle of all the chaos, I think is pretty special.
The Super Bowl a few years ago, when the Seattle was going to pass the ball and New England picked it off. Right. He had recall of seeing this somewhere in the same situation, and he saw the alignment, and he expected pass, and he was there before the receiver was.
Do you remember the Raiders and the Redskins in the Super Bowl, and Theismann threw that pick inside his own 10-yard line? Jack Squirick, which nobody will ever remember his name. They played earlier in the season, and Theismann did that play in the game earlier in the season. They remembered it and they prepared for it. and then when the play, Squire was right there, picked it off, walked it into the end zone. So, all right, let's take a timeout. We'll come back more on the NFL draft. When we come back, it's the Front Row Roundtable show presented by Ralphie's on NBC 24.
Bring yourself to Ralphie's. Yeah, it's that good.
Ralphie's is chillin' and grillin' some tasty fire-cooked choices just for you. Try our zesty barbecue baby back ribs or our beer-steamed ballpark sausages finished on an open fire. As always, half-priced apps start at 9 p.m. every night and go great with our rotating craft and IPA selections.
Bring yourself to Ralphie's. Yeah, it's that good.
Hey, Mortgage Marty here. With the new tax code changes, home equity lines of credit, HELOCs as we call them, have changed whether they're deductible. And with recent interest rate increases, you're seeing those variable rates on them increase. I had a lot of interest in customers putting them in with their first mortgage, converting to a 10, 15, even 20 year to compress the timeline so they're not stretching back out over 30 and get better rates. If you have interest in that, just text HELOC to the number you see on the screen there, HELOC, and we'll get you info on how to take advantage of that tax deductibility all over again.
See the best wrestlers in the Midwest as Powerbomb Wrestling is on the road and debuting in Findlay on Sunday, May the 6th at the All-American Rock House, 1851 Tiffin Avenue. It's a double main event as Pedo the Killer Clown faces the legendary Bobo Brazil Jr., plus a tag team war as Righteous Indignation takes on the former champions The Dirty. VIP tickets and reserved tables are available. Get your Findlay discount advance tickets to the All-American Rock House or Changing Tides Aquatics or anytime at pbwexcitement.com. Back we are. It's the Front Row Roundtable show presented by Ralphie's, and we thank them very much for being the presenting sponsor here for this show. Local company, local business, they care about local, and we're so happy to be able to spotlight them here on the Front Row Roundtable show. If your local business would like to be spotlighted here, well, we can do that for you. So you can get a hold of me through website, Facebook, Twitter, about anywhere, and we'll do that. Marty, local guy too, as a matter of fact. All right, back to the NFL draft. Logan Woodside gets taken by Cincinnati in the 7th round, finally. It got to the point where it got to the 7th round. I was almost hoping he wouldn't get drafted because a lot of times then you can pick your team of where you want to go and go somewhere where it's a good fit. But I think Cincinnati's a really good fit because I'm not an Andy Dalton fan by any stretch of the imagination. So I think it's fantastic he got taken by the Bengals.
Andy's there every year, it seems like, but you're right. It just the big game late in the year. Maybe Woodside has a chance right there. I was reading something today, too, about the Hunter kid at BGSU, where he got to kind of pick where he went by being a free agent and an undrafted free agent. And where can I make a team? Not make an impact, but where can I get in that roster?
Or even make a practice squad.
Yeah, and he thought the Hunter kid's going to Kansas City. But you're right about maybe not being drafted and be able to pick and choose. But for Woodside, maybe Cincinnati's a good place to be.
Well, if you were going to get drafted, that's one of the places that presents opportunities pretty much right away. And I'm not saying that he'll play this season, but opportunities to be the guy because McCarron moved on. So, the heir apparent to Dalton is not apparent, and if he can work his way in there, the clipboard carrying job in the NFL is not the worst thing in the world.
No.
If you can,
Right.
right? Backup quarterbacks that show a little flair in the preseason and show a little flair when they get in for the guy, that's a great job.
Bruce Gradkowski was largely a backup quarterback in the NFL and had a very nice career.
Yes, he did. The MAC has turned out a lot of quarterbacks through the years. In the last 15, 20 years, it's been enjoyable to watch MAC guys go and do well.
And I want to say this very carefully because I know you and I, we go back and forth on the MAC and competitiveness and whatever else. It drives me crazy when I see someone say, well, he didn't play against great competition because he played the MAC or whatever. With the MAC's track record of instant success in the NFL, pretty much year after. Kareem Hunt played in the MAC and led the NFL in rushing as a rookie last year, and yet we're talking a year later about inferior competition. I'm so tired of it because it doesn't make any sense.
Well, actually, Woodside had one of his best games against Miami. Against the Hurricanes.
Correct.
Yes.
Who were considered one of the top defensive teams in the country,
Yep.
and whose offense struggled, and but for a couple quirky plays in the third quarter, Toledo maybe wins that game. And I don't want to digress into that, but I'm so tired of hearing about the talent level. I understand all 11 talent levels different, but the upper level talent all over the place is fantastic. The Saints traded up for a guy from a school I don't even know where it's at on a map. And you know, you watch those things, it's like, I don't want to hear it anymore. Because players that we all know and have watched have had immediate success and impact at the NFL level year one or year two coming out of the MAC. And I'm just tired of hearing about it.
We can all agree that MAC basketball isn't what it once was. You can go to MAC games at Toledo or Bowling Green and see pros. And you're not seeing that in the MAC anymore in basketball.
Right.
But in football, you're still going to see those guys come. Whether it's Roethlisberger or Pennington or whoever else comes through, you're seeing those guys. Kareem Hunt's a great example.
Hunt, Barry Church.
I think the Chiefs surprised a lot of people last year, and Kareem was a big reason for that early in the year. They had some struggles later on, but early in the year, when Kareem started doing as well as he was, it had a lot to do with him and the Chiefs. But the MAC football guys keep turning out, and maybe Woodside can stick in with the Bengals.
There's a linebacker for the team you cheer for who, I mean, that's what I'm saying. You know, he came out of Buffalo. Right? He was an anomaly, and if you watch the tape, I don't even think he didn't stand out to me, but somebody else saw him on tape and saw something different.
You go back and watch Khalil Mack play the Ohio State Buckeyes, and he impacted that game. And when there's 11 guys, I think it's hard to impact a game on the defensive side, but Khalil Mack that day was everywhere against the Buckeyes. And you could see it then, and it was something special.
But you're talking about a perennial All-Pro who apparently, despite the inferior competition, was instantly successful. And, oh, by the way, it was a predictable result because he was a highly rated draft pick. Yeah. I'm just so tired of hearing this. And maybe it's a local bias, but I watch this stuff, and every year there's a big surprise. And why?
It's not
a big surprise.
We are in the shadow of the Big Ten. When Toledo or Bowling Green play at the same time as Ohio State or Michigan on TV, and that afternoon, it affects attendance.
All right, we got about 30 seconds or so. Any final thoughts on the draft? Were you happy with what the Cowboys did, or are you ever? You're a Packers fan, right?
Packers fan.
I was relatively satisfied, although I feel like it was like an okay dinner.
I didn't like the offensive lineman the Raiders took, but
Packers, you like it?
Like the way I started the beginning of the show, it takes a few years to find out how good or bad that was on Saturday.
Packers should sign Des Bryant.
Boy, do you want those kind of...
Packers should sign Des Bryant.
But if you take good risks, you will end up with a better draft class.
Correct.
And there's teams that don't know how to play the draft. They don't know how to draft for value. And there's some that trade 3 picks to get Josh Allen. So, Vaughn, thank you very much.
Glad to be here.
All right, he will be back sometime soon. Marty's always kind of hanging around, but that's okay. We like Marty. All right, Saturday Night Live coming up next. Powerbomb Wrestling coming up at 2 a.m. If you can't record it, well, then catch it on Fight.tv. See you at Findlay for Powerbomb Wrestling, too. Live event coming up tomorrow, 5 o'clock. And we'll see you next time for Row Roundtable Show, presented by Ruffies.